It's your open source advocate, and I am back with another video, and this week I'm going to talk about OpenMediaVault. So up until now we've talked about TrueNAS, we've talked about Rockstore, and now I want to cover another one called OpenMediaVault. So several of you have asked me for this in the past, and I'm finally getting around to it. And OpenMediaVault, like TrueNAS and like Rockstore, is really a great option if you're looking for a way to store a lot of information, a lot of data, media as they like to call it here in this case, which it really is. It's media, right, that you're storing on hard drives. So this is a NAS system that you're setting up. Now you can run OpenMediaVault on Raspberry Pi, so be aware of that. A lot of you guys ask me about if you can run these things on Raspberry Pi or not. Yes, you can run OpenMediaVault on Raspberry Pi. You want to make sure you get the Raspberry Pi version, of course, and then you want to really understand how do you connect up storage devices to your Raspberry Pi so that you can use them with something like OpenMediaVault. You might just want one really big drive, like an 8 terabyte drive, versus trying to have a lot of little drives that you're running in some kind of RAID. But just be aware of that. I am going to set it up today on Proxmox as a virtual machine so that we can go through the install together, and I don't have the issues like I had with TrueNAS and with Rockstore where it's got this weird reflection from my windows and things like that on the screen because I'm trying to record it with my phone. So we're going to jump over and get started on the install right after this. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers and all of my patrons over at Patreon. Seriously, you guys make this so worth it for me to do these videos every week. I really truly enjoy it, and I just can't say thank you enough. If you're enjoying these videos, subscribe. Let YouTube know that I'm doing a good job by subscribing to the channel. Plus, you'll get notified when I have new videos coming out. And finally, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, give it a like. Just click on that thumbs up, and that way YouTube knows that you like it, and they'll pass it along to other people that might enjoy my content as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. Let's get started. I wanted to open up some channels for discussion, so I've created this Rocket Chat server, and I've got it mixed up with Jitsi Meet. I've created a few channels already to start up some discussions, but of course we can always open up more channels. If you'd like to jump in and send me a direct message or just ask a question in one of the channels, I'll be monitoring the system. It'll be up and running. I'm going to leave this up and going so that we can have a place where we can all come together and answer each other's questions and have good discussions and good conversations. It's discuss.opensourceisawesome.com. Again, that's discuss.opensourceisawesome.com. I'll have the links in the show notes and the description. Alright, so installing through Proxmox, and I've got a video that I've done on Proxmox already, but really installing something through Proxmox is not difficult at all. So I think that you'll really like this. You'll enjoy seeing how this works. And Proxmox is really a great virtualization tool. I've talked about some others in the past, like Virt Manager and stuff like that, but this time I wanted to talk about something more specific, which is Proxmox. So Proxmox is actually a full operating system that you install. And really it's running Debian, I believe, under the covers, and then on top of that you've got this Proxmox system that you access through a web interface, which is really great. So here I've got my storage areas set up, and I'm going to create a new virtual machine. So I'm just going to click on Create VM, and I'm going to go here, and it's going to ask, like, what are we creating? So let's give it a name. So I want to call this OpenMediaVault. Pretty simple. I'm going to click on the operating system, and in this case it is Linux, and it's a Linux kernel, so I'm just going to leave that alone. And it wants to know, where am I going to find this ISO? So maybe you have an actual ISO that you've uploaded to OpenMediaVault. Maybe you've got an actual CD or DVD drive that you're going to use, or maybe you don't have any media and you're just going to create a virtual machine. But in this case we're going to use one that we've uploaded. So I'm going to jump in here and find my OpenMediaVault ISO. Now this could be an older version. I downloaded this a while ago, but that's okay. Just understand. We're going to just click Next or move to System at the top, either way. I'm going to leave the defaults here. Jump over to Hard Disk. In this case, it's going to create a SCSI disk, and it says, where do you want to store this and kind of create your stuff? So I'm going to create it on a VM1, and I'm going to give it, I don't really know what OpenMediaVault needs on the OS, but I'm going to leave it with 32 gigs. I bet that'll be plenty as far as the operating system goes. And then I'll leave this set to default. So I'm going to go to CPUs. Now I've only got one actual chip, but I've got 4 cores to work with, so I'm going to give it 2 cores. And then we'll go to memory, and I'm going to set this up to 4096. That should be enough. Well, let's go to 8192. So that's 8 gigs. Okay, so we'll give this thing a real shot at running well. And then here for the network, I want it to have actual network access, so I'm just going to leave this virtual bridge, and I'm going to leave it set up like that. We'll just check everything, and then we're just going to click Start. Now, if you wanted to start this thing right away, you could just check this box and then click Finish, but we'll click Finish and let it create the virtual space. And it'll kind of tell us down here, it'll give us an OK in the bottom that says, hey, I did it. And then up here we should see that So we should see our OpenMediaVault right here. There it popped up, so it's going to be 100. It just gets an ID from the system that has to be different from the other IDs. So now we're set. We can just click on Start, and then I'm going to go here to the console, and it's going to connect to that console, and we'll see it jump into OpenMediaVault. And we're already at the install, so I'm just going to click on Install. I'm going to hit Enter there. I'm going to expand this out to full screen so you guys can kind of see what happens. And here we go. We've got our language selection, so we should be able to use our mouse or our keyboard. Yes, so we can hit English for me. You pick the language that best suits you and your needs. And then we've got country, so in my case United States is already picked, which is great. And then we've got American English, which again is for me correct. So it's American English. It's probably the worst English there is out there actually, but hey, we're going to pick American English because that's what I speak. I barely speak it, but hey. So this thing's going to run through a little bit of a process, and then it's going to pop up and kind of give us a few more options to continue forward with. So you see it goes to the network configuration that it wants, and then it says, hey, what do you want for a host name? So I like this because then I can say .local right here at the end, so it's got OpenMediaVault.local. In fact, I'm going to change this because when I did this for practice, that's what I named it. So I'm going to call it OMV.local, just to make it different. I'm going to hit Continue. And then it says, okay, what do you want for a root password? So I'm just going to show, I'm not going to show the password, but I'm just going to type in a root password here that I want to use, and you should use a fairly good password there. Just make sure you remember what you type in, and then it's going to ask you to re-enter it. So we're just going to re-enter that bad boy. We're going to move forward, and then it's going to finish up some more configuration and some installation here, and I think we'll have to do a little bit more before we get right all the way. Yes. So it wants to know what time zone we're in. We're in Central. I like that time zone picker. That was super easy. That's a lot easier than America, Chicago, or whatever I have to find every time. So now it's going to go through the system install. It doesn't take very long. It's really not a huge installation, but we'll let it run, and I'll come back when this is finished. So OpenMediaVault runs on Debian in the background. So in this case, they're asking you, where do you want to try to pull the Debian archives and updates from? So in this case, we're just going to say United States. That's where I'm at. But again, pick a location that's geographically close to you. And then you can pick a mirror out of that location that you picked. I'm fine with Debian.org, but if you have a preferred mirror that you would rather use, go for it. You can pick any of these and probably get great results. So in this case, it's asking if you need to use an HTTP proxy to access the outside internet. You should type in that proxy address here. I don't, but if you did, you would want to enter that before you continued forward. But once you've entered it, just tab till it highlights continue. Hit enter. So it's going to go out, it's going to get updates real quick and pull those down. You kind of get to these places where you just get like this screen that doesn't show you much of what's going on. Just be patient, it always comes back up. So now it's going to install our bootloader. It's going to ask us, where do you want to put the bootloader for this system? Well, we only have one drive, so we need to move down, make sure that drive is highlighted, and then press enter. So it went through a little bit more setup there. It was pretty basic, and now we're ready to move forward. And it says installation is complete. It's time to reboot your system and log in through the web browser. So we're just going to hit continue. And here we can see it's going to reboot. And now we see a slightly different screen where we've got grub, so we're going to just accept the first option there in the grub bootloader. It's going to scroll some stuff down the screen, I imagine, and then it'll resize the screen. There it goes. And it's ready. So it says OMV is ready for us. So instead of logging in here on the console, I am going to go back out of that, and we'll go over here to our summary for this machine. And we can see that it's running currently. It's not using pretty much any process because there's nothing going on with it. But we know the address of our system, so we're just going to go, and we're actually going to try omv.local first. So omv.local. And look at that, it finds it, so that was great. And it's English, so I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. It's kind of weird the way it scales, but it's admin, and I believe the default is OpenMediaVault. So this is not the same username and password, or the same password that you entered in the setup. That's for your root user access through like SSH. There we go. So it's admin, and then the password is OpenMediaVault, all lowercase, all together. And that gets you into the system. So now we're inside of OpenMediaVault, and everything looks like it's running really well. Now that we're in, we actually want to go and change a couple of things real quick to set some stuff up and make it more secure. So we're going to go into General Settings, and we're going to go here to the Web Administrator Password, and we're going to change that. So right now it's the standard OpenMediaVault. We don't want that. We want this to be something a little more secure, so we're going to type in a strong password of our own, and we're going to type it 2 times, and then we're going to click on Save. And now we're going to log out, and then we'll log back in. Yes. Now we're going to log back in with admin and our new password. So now we've got a password that's not the generic password, which would make it harder for somebody to try to get into our system. Now we're running in HTTP mode right now. So the other thing you can do if you want to do it is here. You can see this says port 80 and 5 minutes for the auto logout. So first of all, that auto logout can be kind of annoying. So you might want to change that up to something more like 15 or 30 minutes. 15 seems okay with me. I'm going to click Save. And then down here you've got secure connection. So you can say enable SSL and TLS. And you can enable this. Let's see. Oh, we have to apply the changes. Okay. That's a message I hadn't noticed before, or I don't remember. So it's applying configuration changes just so it doesn't log us out every 20 minutes. But back to SSL. If you want to do this when you turn it on, there's a certificate, so there's none, port 443, and it says force SSL TLS. So we can turn that on as well. This will probably give us a self-signed certificate right now. That's fine. That's more secure than no certificate at all. Just be aware it's going to warn you in the browser when you do that. But if you want to set this up, really, you'd probably want to use something like Nginx Proxy Manager, get you some Let's Encrypt certificates, things like that, and go that route. But let's see. Let's just save. Yeah, it's going to force us to pick a certificate, which we don't have. So we may have to do a self-signed cert and then go put in the self-signed certificate. Right now, we don't actually have that. So we'll hit reset. That's good. There we go. Okay. So over here in System, whenever we go back, you'll see that there's options to get to everything that's kind of here on the left bar, except instead we see it here under System like that. Now if we just click on the Home, you're going to see that you have each of these sections that are in the left bar here down the middle as well. So you can kind of work from either direction that you want to do that, and you can kind of do all the same things we've always done. So the first thing is disks. So if we click right now, it's going to show us that we have SR0, which is a DVD, which is just the image that we use to create this thing. We can get rid of that here in a minute through the Proxmox. And then we have our main drive, which we don't want to use for storage, and it probably isn't, probably won't let us, but we don't want to use this for storage. So we need to add some hardware. So whether you did this through a physical machine and actually added a drive, or whether you actually went out into Proxmox and did it, is up to you. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to make sure I'm on the right one, and then I'm going to click on Hardware. I'm going to say Add, and I'm going to say Hard Disk. Right here, I'm just going to pick the disk that I want, and that's going to be my 8 terabyte volume, and I'm going to give it 4,000 gigabytes, which is 4 terabytes basically, and I'm going to click on Add. And now I have that next hard drive, and then here I can get rid of this ISO image and tell it no media. Click OK, that's gone. Since we've made some changes, let's go ahead and reboot this guy. This should be pretty quick. Alright, so now it's booted back up, and we're going to log back in. Now that took a little bit of time because it stops a bunch of cron jobs in the background. I just fast forwarded through it for you guys. Don't freak out if it takes longer than you think, if you're not sitting right as a machine or something. Give it 5 or 6 minutes the first time you reboot for sure, just so it can finish up some stuff. But now we're going to go back down to disks. There we go. Now we see our SDB, which is our 4 terabyte drive, and then here's our main SDA, or our 4 terabyte drive here is SDA, and SDB is our boot drive with 32 gigabytes. So we've got our 2 disks, which is great. Next, we want to go down to Smart, and we can kind of check out if there's anything going on with Smart here. So we can say, we can look at settings, we can enable, and then it can say, check interval 1800 seconds, just half an hour. So we can just say, devices, we can see what's going on. We can set this, we can save, and they want us to apply whenever we do that, so yes. Okay. Now we can check out our devices and see what it says. It may not have done any checks yet. and then we can see scheduled tasks. Now we can move down to file systems, and here we can see kind of what kind of file systems we have. So this one's showing swap, and this one here is showing that we've got so this is basically our SDA1 and SDB5, or SDB1, SDB5. This is on our main drive. So if we want to create a new one, we click on Create. We're going to pick our 4 terabyte drive. We're going to give it a label, and this is Storage Main. ext4 is fine, but you do have other options. You have ButterFS, ext3, XFS, and JFS. I'm okay with ext4. It says, do you really want to format this device? So yes, that's fine. It's going to go through that process. Alright, when it finishes up getting the file system created, you can click on Close, and now we've got a file system set up for OpenMediaVault. Just like a lot of things in TrueNAS and in Rockstore, there are lots of things in OpenMediaVault to kind of be seen and noticed. So we talked about the general settings, notifications. So if you want to set up your SMTP server settings, this is where you would do that. So for instance, mine is box.fixitdelrio.com, and my SMTP port is 587 because it runs on TLS. It is not run on regular just non-encrypted mail, so we need start TLS is what I would have to set, and then the sender email. So this is where you put in who it's going to be from. So in my case, I could put no reply at fixitdelrio.com. Now you could of course just create another email address to be the sender email address if you're running your own mail server, and that could be something like omv@fixitdelrio.com. And then of course you put in the username and password and put authentication required in my case, and in this case it would be no reply at fixitdelrio.com again, and then the password that I have set up for that email. On recipients, this is where you would put your email address so that you would receive the emails, and you can put a secondary email as well, so you can have a primary and a secondary, and then you'll receive any kind of system emails that come from the system. Once you've done that, then you can hit reset, of course, and then once you do that, you can send a test email. Now I haven't set everything up, but you can send a test email to make sure that all your settings are correct and that you actually get the email that you expect. Then you can go to notifications in and of itself to set up what kind of notifications you want. So maybe you want notifications about Smart. You want to know, like, is there a problem with a software RAID or file systems, things like that. And then you also have system notifications about CPU usage, load average, memory usage, and so on. So you can kind of keep an eye on your system through this email notification system, which is pretty great. Under power management, you have some power monitoring options, which specifies whether to monitor the system status and select the most appropriate CPU level. This is probably something you want. Now if you're like a super guru and you know what you're doing, you might want to turn this off and do it yourself, but this is probably what you want. Now the power button, you can say, what does the power button on the system do? In this case it's a virtual machine, so it doesn't do anything actually, but you could actually pick, like, is it going to shut the system down or put it in standby, that kind of stuff. So you could change that as well if it's a physical system, physical hardware. When you go into monitoring, so you again can enable monitoring, and then you can say whether the system performance statistics are basically being collected periodically. And again, unless you have some kind of restrictions where you don't want this to be collected, I would say just leave that turned on. So this is where you would upload your certificates. So when we talked earlier about having TLS set up, this is where you would set up those certificates, and then you could go and set up TLS. So at first I didn't realize that, and then I found this. So this is where you would do that. You can set up scheduled jobs, so things that you want to happen on a schedule is basically set up in this location here. So if you wanted to reboot the system occasionally, things like that, you would set all of that up under scheduled jobs. And if you click on add, you can see what types of jobs there are, and basically, time of execution, so whether you want a certain date or certain time, things like that. And then basically you can just kind of move down and say, here's the user that's going to do it, here's the command that I want done, and then send me an email to let me know that it's going through, and you can add a comment to the action. So it's pretty flexible, but you do need to know what command you want it to actually run in order to set a schedule for it. There is update management as well, so you can check for updates, and you can say, you know what, I have a lot of updates to be done, and I do in this case have some updates that need to be done. So you can just check on the box and then click on update, and it's going to start the update kind of processing on the system. This is really nice. It's nice to set it up to be like automatic updates whenever possible, but in this case I'm just going to have updates here, and I'm going to click on install, and I check all the things I want. I click on install, and it's going to install those updates, and then you can refresh that check to make sure you've got everything everything as fresh as possible before you run those updates as well if you want to. Then in here you've got settings, so you say save, of course, install updates from pre-release updates, and then community maintained updates. So if you want pre-release updates, that means things that are kind of beta version, I guess is the best way to put it. It could even be alpha version, so be careful about this. And then community maintained updates would mean that you have some kind of packages that are community packages, and you want to make sure those are getting updated as well. In this case, they're off by default, and if you're not really needing something like that, I'd say leave them off. Don't worry about it. And then finally, you have the plugins and the plugin architecture for OpenMediaVault. So OpenMediaVault has some pretty great plugins. You can actually look at this and you can see that you've got like a share root file system, you've got USB backup, and they all start with OpenMediaVault, so you just have to kind of look at this part after that. You've got LVM2, logical volume management. You've got your disk stats, so you can turn on disk stats as far as a plugin. You have forked DAAPD, so I'm not sure what a DAAPD server is. Looks like it's something for iTunes compatibility, so you could turn that on and set up some iTunes compatibility for your storage. So here you've got SharePort, which emulates the Airport Express. So that's pretty nice because Airport Express was something that a lot of Apple users really liked and really enjoyed. So if you're a Mac user, you've got a couple of cool things here to help you out with that. You've got your SNMP, your Simple Network Management Protocol. TFTP for uploading files. You've got ClamAV for scanning the files and making sure that any files that are on your system are actually clean and not filled up with viruses and things like that. And then you've got your network UPS tools, which is pretty great as well. So if we click, if we check this and we say, I want to install that plugin, we'll say yes. And when it's finished, it'll tell you done. Just click on close. And it'll say, this page is going to reload now to let the changes take effect. So just click OK. It'll let you know that it's going to do that. So it basically takes you back to the top, and now you can see plugins. And then you can kind of see, which plugins you have installed and which plugins you don't. So you have installed right here. And you can choose how you want to sort these things. So it shows you here I've got ClamAV installed, just like we were expecting. And now we can move on with the rest of the tutorial. So we kind of went through disks, smart, RAID management. You do have file systems as well. So remember, we set up some file systems. You have users, so you can add users to the system, and then of course you have groups where you can create groups and then add users to groups and then assign permissions to those groups or those users individually. And then you have share folders, so if you have a user you add and you want to create a share for them so that they can upload files to OpenMediaVault, they can do that as well. Services, so there's antivirus services which you can turn on. There's FTP, NFS, rsync, so that you can do rsync backups. There's smart or SMB CIFS, so that you can do Samba. You have SSH as well. As far as diagnostics, you have the dashboard, which is kind of where you start off when you first log into the system. You have your system information, which gives you a little bit of an overview of your system, and you have several different pieces of information through here that you can click. So kind of check your tags, your tabs up here at the top. You have disk usage. You have local storage, memory usage. So you have a few nice charts here that you can check out as well under the information system or system information setting. You have system logs, so you can kind of see a log of what's been happening on the system and keep track of that. And then of course again you have services here that you can turn on and off from this section as well. You have FTP, you have SSH, and you have Samba CIFS, and then of course you have the overview. Finally, you have the option to donate to the project to help support the project, and all of these projects have different ways of monetizing. So whenever you see these things, don't feel like they're trying to just do the rope-a-dope, or they get you to think it's something free and then they want to charge you. That's not the case, but they do need to monetize to help move these kind of projects forward. So if you really like a project like this and you want to see it continue, then donating a few bucks, a few dollars, a few quid, a few whatever it is your money system happens to be, is probably worth it if you're going to be using something like this long term and you want it to be sustained. Then there's support, so you can get support information, and finally about, and you can see the about information for OpenMediaVault. So OpenMediaVault's pretty great. Alright, so for the last thing that's kind of important out of the gate, we want to have some extra capabilities, and I know plugins give you that, but there's also the OMV-Extras, the OpenMediaVault Extras. So in order to get to that, we're going to go over here to this tab, and you're going to go to the omvextras.org, and it's omv-extras.org website. And right here it's going to give you, and I'll have this link in the show notes in the description, it's going to give you this little command right here that you can run. So we're going to copy that command, and we're going to go back into our OpenMediaVault instance. Now you either want to make sure that you have SSH enabled, which is really important, and in this case it's enabled, it's port 22, it gives me all of this information, or if you're running it like I am in Proxmox, then you want to have access through the basically Proxmox terminal to do this. So I'm actually going to do this through the terminal here. So I'm just going to bring it up, I'm going to center it a little bit for you, and then we're just going to make the font a little larger, and I'm going to do SSH, and this is going to be root at, remember this is root this time because we're doing SSH, OMV.local. Yeah, there we go. I don't know why it did that, but that was a little crazy. And then put in your password that you entered during the installation process, and we'll just do clear here. And now we're going to do that command, so I'm just going to paste in that command that I copied, so it should look like this. wget-o, capital O, and then space hyphen space https github.com/openmediavault-plugin-developer/packages/raw/master/install. So we're going to let it go out and get that thing, and then it's going to basically run this this shell script to go and get the OpenMediaVault extras for us. Alright, looks like everything there has completed. Now one thing I do like to do whenever I actually install those things, I do like to do a reboot. Yeah, so that seems to have disconnected us even though it didn't kick us out of the shell. So I'm just going to disconnect from that thing, and we will go here and check our console, and it shows that it is actually rebooting. There we go, it's rebooted. That was pretty quick that time. So it just tells us, hey, this thing just rebooted. You need to click in that space. So we do admin, we do our new password. We're going to log in here, and we're going to see if we see, and we do. So now under plugins we have a new section called OMV-Extras. So we're going to click on OMV-Extras right there, and you'll see that we have a few things. So we have settings. So we have testing repo, extras repo, and backports. So I'm going to turn on the extras repo, and I'm going to hit save. Alright, looks like it's on. I'm going to click on Docker, and here you'll see that we've got some Docker options up here. I'm going to go back to the settings. I'm going to hit, let's see what we have. We have update, OMV update, upgrade, dist upgrade, and apt clean. So let's do update. That was pretty quick. And then let's just do the OMV update. Alright, so that ran through the actual OMV upgrade. There is an upgrade and a dist upgrade and an apt clean, so you can run all these things right from here, which is pretty great. Now, if I go to Docker, it's going to tell you, hey, Docker's not actually running or installed yet, but you have a couple of options here. So you have Docker. You can install Docker, you can remove Docker, and you can restart Docker right from the UI, so you don't have to go through all the trouble that I've shown you in the past if you're running OpenMediaVault to actually install Docker CE. You've got IB tables, so you can set up, use legacy or use the new stuff. You have Portainer. If you'd like to use Portainer, you can install it or remove it, and then of course once you've installed it, you have the option to refresh it. Or you can use Yacht, which is kind of a newcomer to the game, similar to Portainer, where it lets you kind of manage your Docker containers and things like that. It's got a pretty nice interface, and I've got a video coming up on that as well. So here with Docker, we're just going to go and install it. We're going to click on Install. Alright, so if you haven't taken notice, you'll note that OpenMediaVault said, you know what, Docker's great, and it's a great way to make add-ons to the system, but we don't want to create our own user interface for it. So this is basically what you get for Docker. Here you can see Portainer. You can set up some advanced stuff if you want, but right now Portainer is not even installed. Here you can see Yacht. So really, if we say we want to manage things in Docker and we want to do it through a graphical user interface, then they have the option of Portainer or Yacht for you to use. So if we go here to Portainer, we can just click on Install. And if you're patient, you'll see that it's actually doing the things that I've shown you in so many videos about how to install things with Docker. It's just doing it in the background, and it's making it very clickable for you. So you just click on a button and it kind of does that for you. So now we've got Portainer installed, And if we go down here and if we just refresh, I imagine, let's see, oh yeah, now Portainer has the refresh button. So now we can click on save, and we're going to click on apply. And here you can see that it shows Portainer up 18 seconds, so the user interface does refresh. There we go. And then you have some advanced settings for Portainer. If you want to change the actual Portainer web ports, you can. The bad thing is you don't have the option to install the Portainer agent here, which for me would be great because I have Portainer already running somewhere. I'd love just to have the agent going on this thing. Now I could do it through the command line for sure, but it'd be nice to have it just set up so I could actually do it here through the user interface and run my Portainer stuff that way. So it says open Portainer, so you see you've got this button now, so I can click that. It's going to open up Portainer, and it's going to have me run through the Portainer setup just like you do with any other setup. So here it wants a password. And then if I give it a different username, that's probably better. And we'll create the user, and then we're going to tell it this is for Docker. And we're going to connect, and then we have this local Portainer setup. So inside of Portainer, of course, you can look at the app templates that the Portainer guys put out, which they've got quite a few. But there's also other libraries you can go and set up to look at their app templates as well. You don't have to use the ones that are specifically made by the Portainer folks, which makes it pretty nice. So there you go. We've got OpenMediaVault up and it's running, and we've got Docker set up on it so we can add some extras, and we've got Portainer set up on it so that you can do that through a graphical user interface if you prefer. There is also an option for Cockpit. It is not installed yet. If you're not familiar with Cockpit, I have a video on Webmin, which is a web-based server administration system, kind of like what you would call SQL Server Studio, I guess. I don't know what it is, but not SQL Server, but Microsoft Server, where it's got a bunch of clicky stuff. It's not command line driven. So Cockpit is kind of the same thing. I think Cockpit is much better on Red Hat type operating systems over Debian and Ubuntu. There's a lot more features to it, I believe. If I'm wrong about that, let me know in the comments. Let me know how to get everything set up for the Cockpit side. I know the few times I've installed it, it's there. It's pretty basic. There's just not a lot you can do with it from the UI, in my opinion. But it's there to look at it. And then, of course, you have options for your kernel, and you can kind of choose how you want those kernel updates to go. So that's really the OMV-Extras on the OpenMediaVault side, and OpenMediaVault in and of itself is pretty great. So now you can go and actually set up some of these containers and really use OpenMediaVault to its fullest potential, and it really competes up there with Rockstore and TrueNAS. So hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along the journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.